The Data Hot Seat. Hello, data friends. Welcome back to the Data Hot Seat, the podcast where we get our hands dirty with the data and AI announcements that actually matter. I'm your host, Paul McComish from Advancing Analytics, where the coffee is still strong and the dashboards are, as always, a work of art. Now, if you've been with us on the series, you know we've been working our way through the big announcements from the Databricks Data and AI Summit one at a time. And today we're tackling one that I think speaks to every single data team out there, whether you're running one pipeline or 1,000. We're talking about Genie ZeroOps. In simple terms, it's an autonomous background agent that monitors your data and AI assets, your pipelines, your jobs, your tables, your ML models, and takes action before or when things go wrong. It detects the issues, traces the root cause, builds a fix, and tests it safely before anything ever touches production. If you've ever spent your Monday morning firefighting a broken pipeline instead of building something new, this episode is for you. I'm speaking to George Dutton from Advancing Analytics on what it all means. Let's get into it. So welcome to the Data Hot Seat, George. For those who don't know you, who are you and what do you do?
Hi, I'm George. I am a senior data engineer at Advancing Analytics. A bit about me. I left uni as a maths graduate in 2019. No idea what data was, no idea what Azure was, knew it only as a color. Fell into a consultancy from a careers fair. From the job advert, it said every day is different. I thought that sounds fantastic. That's exactly
certainly
what
true.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's fell into managed services. So looking after big hotel chain platform, looking after their customers, data platform, pricing engine, all of that good stuff. Went from one big client into another consultancy where I was looking after 15 or 20 clients. So very different kettle of fish, but all very similar problems, all facing data problems. Started to grow in love with Databricks. And so joined Advancing about 6 months ago. So yeah, that's me.
Fantastic. So we are obviously here to talk about Databricks and the Databricks announcements. I mean, in particular, we're going to talk about Genie ZeroOps. So for anybody who hasn't heard the keynote or haven't heard about this, what problem is Genie ZeroOps actually trying to solve for data teams?
Yeah, so Databricks went to engineers and asked them, what are you spending your time on? And they found that up to 53% of data engineers' time is spent maintaining, not building. And Databricks were a bit surprised by this and realized that it was a growing issue, that we're spending more and more time maintaining pipelines than building it. And this is just becoming an increasing frustration for data engineers. So they've brought in Genie ZeroOps to be that helpful hand, that co-pilot or agent to be alongside you to help maintain, help sort of prompt you in the right direction to reduce that time down. So more pipelines, more code all over the place, more maintenance. And they're starting to realize that maintenance was a problem. So let's fix that headache.
And it's quite clever. I mean, the demos that they had at the keynotes were quite good. I mean, we love these things. We love keynote demos. It all works perfectly first time. But my demos work like that, it'd be fantastic. So just give us a few features. What are the key things that Genie ZeroOps can tell you about your pipelines if they've fallen over?
So its key features are really sort of across all of your, what they call data assets. So pipelines, tables, jobs, models, whatever it is inside Databricks running in ideally production, Genie ZeroOps is looking after all of it and looking at all of it to see where things have fallen over, whether that's failures, whether that's errors, whether that's things that aren't erroring, but have just like dropped a little bit and might be affecting a dashboard, for example. Those are the bits that they kept on showing in the demos, that ultimately it's not just big red, flashy red box on a pipeline. They need to have GenieOps, even though it can do that. It's not just that. It's when the pipeline has done everything that it needs to do, but the data's gone suddenly from 1,000 rows to 0. They kept on showing that as a real use case for Genie ZeroOps, because ultimately no one is ever going to build all the rules to cater to all of those different cases. So Genie ZeroOps as an agent is going to come in and start seeing and identifying those for you. and then presenting them in an inbox type format. They kept on saying it was very similar to like Gmail or Outlook or something like that, where you've got an inbox, you've got priorities, and the top priorities go to the top of, you might want to look at these 10 different issues, incidents, whatever you want to call them, and start looking at those and start fixing those.
So just focusing in on those agents that Genie ZeroOps have, Databricks have made a point that general coding agents can't do necessarily the same thing. And something needed to be purpose-built for data and AI operations. So what's different about a data pipeline versus a software bug that makes Genie ZeroOps more suitable here?
Yeah, so they're ultimately very different. So you've got a software bug with a stack trace, an error log. You can get to the bottom of it and go exactly what has happened to get me to this stack trace. What Genie ZeroOps is trying to do is trying to do that for data assets, but also bringing the context. So why might it have failed? What is the root cause? Sort of bringing that brain to the operation. So not just it's fallen over and there's an error, but the data's gone down. Where has that come from? What's the track back? What's the data lineage to go back to the source system or back to those source tables and go, okay, this source table now isn't getting loaded anymore. That's the root cause of your problem. So really sort of from a managed services point of view, that's what my brain was always doing. I have a stack trace. Great. That's helpful to some extent, but ultimately, where does it always track back to as this is the root cause of the problem. This is where the problem is. It might be 3 layers up, might be 3 layers down, but this is where the problem is.
And if you've got quite a complicated pipeline, I mean, some of the lineage steps, if you've got a nice, clean medallion architecture, you might only go back a couple of hops to find in your lineage. I have seen some very interesting architectures over my time whereby you might have 20 hops. So Genie ZeroOps looks like it might be able to trace down all the way through those steps, try and trace where it is. So it's potentially quite exciting and potentially quite flexible in what it might be able to do.
Yeah, I think really all we've got vision of at the moment is these like demos, and they come in a couple of different formats and a couple of different presentations at Summit. So it's really trying to dig into what can it actually do. Let's get our hands on it and let's start seeing it in private preview and then in public preview to really understand what are the capabilities that it can exactly do. What Databricks say it can do and what it might be actually be able to do might be two different things. So we'll see when we get our hands on it.
And it's like anything out of these announcements, we want to get our hands on it as soon as possible so we can play with it, understand what it's doing, and understand how to make the best of it, basically. So one of the standout features is this sandbox verification step. So it tests its fixes against real production data using zero copy clones, those shallow clones, without touching the actual production, which is quite clever. How important is that trust layer for getting teams comfortable handing this over to an agent? Is it something that they are going to want to do?
Yeah, I think that is going to be the proof in the pudding. That's going to be the deciding factor whether this flies or sinks. Because in the big keynote, everyone was asked, do you want to give an agent right access to production? No one put up their hand. In a room of thousands of people, no one wants to admit that they would give the keys to the kingdom and the right access to production to their agent.
And I think if anybody had done, I think they'd have been hauled out of the room and booed.
Exactly. It was very telling because asking people to agree to that is very obvious. But ultimately, no one wants to give their agent keys to the kingdom. So Databricks have thought about this and thought, hold on, how can we do this so people trust it? And that trusted sandbox layer is really key. So you can have those shallow clones. You can get an agent to try again to see what the solution is. And then it can present you with the solution, go, ta-da, I've got the answer. I've worked this out in a sandbox environment. I am your little junior engineer that's helping you. I've done it in a little sandbox environment. I know what the fix is. It's going to do this. Do you agree with me? Yes or no?
And you get that nice little pull request as well. And you could approve that pull request straight away. I mean, you'd be mad to just blanket approve pull requests. So if you're out there and you don't review your pull requests, you just approve them all. Don't talk to me anymore. Anyway, so obviously you get that pull request, you can review it. And if you're happy, you can click approve there and then, can't you?
Yeah, so you can either go, oh, that's easy, that's a quick fix, that's really obvious, I know that was coming, whoops, I missed that step, approve that pull request. Or you can go back through the Genie and the agent's thinking and work out how it got to that rationale. So did it see something that had dropped in terms of data totals? Did it see something that absolutely exploded? What's it tried to do in terms of solutions? And actually understand that not person's thinking, actually an agent's thinking behind the rationale of the answer, and that it's been tested and that it's been proven in a sandbox environment ready for you to approve.
And I was thinking about this a little bit more as to what the agent is going to be doing when it tries to come up with these fixes. And it led me back to the good old fashioned, you really need to document and comment your code to say what's going on. And this, I think this makes it even more important, because you then are telling the agent, this is what this bit of code is supposed to be doing. And the agent will hopefully go, okay, yeah, but it's not doing it quite right. And I can make a tweak there to fix the data. Obviously, we all comment our code regularly, don't we?
Yeah, or get an agent to do it for us.
Yes. Eventually, the agent will write the code, it will comment the code, and it will fix its own code. Are we needed anymore?
Well, that is a grand question. That is very, very valid. But I think what I see Genie ZeroOps really helping with is the legwork, or the stuff that really took time out of your day. So investigating data lineage, tracking back, all of that sort of error handling, all of that stuff that we used to spend a long time on. And ultimately, if it's presenting you with solutions, you can start figuring out, hold on, Genie ZeroOps is finding this is a particular problem. This particular pipeline needs a little bit more tinkering and a little bit more effort. So we spend our time on the 1% rather than the 99% that is just all good and all carrying on. So ultimately, it means that we're going to focus in the right areas. And if it can accelerate that, then fantastic.
And it's a recurring theme in all the other podcasts so far. It's all been talking about how the agents are there to save us doing the boring stuff, so we can then just focus on doing what we need to be doing. So what features we get from the business. So we're not busy firefighting, we're not busy fixing. Something else is doing that for us, and we can get on with making the business better than it is at the moment with data, obviously.
Yeah. And I think thinking about it, like what you're saying about comments and things like that, is really the brains behind it. The people in the chairs that are driving all these agents are going to be the context bit, because that is always going to be important. So do you understand the business context? Have you put that into the code? Have you put the tags on? Have you put all of the important things in Unity Catalog so the agents can actually be given a chance? Because ultimately, your code is only as good as your comments, your data is only as good as your tags, your agents are only as good as all of that.
Well, it's like us lowly humans. We can only be productive if we have proper instructions on what we're supposed to be doing. So
very much so.
So ZeroOps, as we mentioned earlier, extends into machine learning, extends into monitoring that model drift and training a correct candidate, validating it before it touches live traffic, all that sort of stuff. So how big a shift is that from a more traditional ML ops practice?
I think it's really is it going to change the paradigm? I don't know. Or whether is it going to just speed up that ML loop a little bit. So the areas where engineers probably spent a little bit more time of finding the candidate models, finding all of those different areas, and then proving that they're going to work, they don't necessarily need to spend more time on that area. ZeroOps can do that for them. They can start validating the output. Very similar to the engineering headache, where they don't need to spend the time identifying the issues or digging into the data lineage or the logs. They can spend time on the fixes and then improvements and fine tuning it and understanding, okay, the agent keeps on finding this. This model is perfect. Why is that? So keep asking the questions of the agent to be the facilitator as to why is this model better than that model?
And it's, as you say, it's that continuous loop. And if we talk about like retraining models as well, and just trying to keep a handle on that drift. If you've got one or two models, it's probably arguably easier. If you've got 100 models and you need to monitor all of them, trying to make sure you've got the right monitoring in place. So the hope is that hopefully this will extend into it and make life easier for everybody and then sort it. But we shall see.
Yeah, we shall see. And I think a lot of the demos didn't necessarily go into that. I think that's on the roadmap to come in terms of models and other areas. I think people are really, really keen to get their hands on sort of the pipeline stuff because that just creates so much noise. But actually to help you with models, particularly if that's your area and you've got hundreds of models to look after, again, sort of focusing on that 1% of models that is actually causing you a headache or needs really fine tuning, that's where it will help you. It will narrow your focus as opposed to just the deluge of models that you're dealing with.
So you mentioned earlier you worked in managed services, so you're probably more than familiar with the term firefighting.
Yeah, a little bit too much.
So just going back to your previous roles, if you had something like ZeroOps in place, how would that have helped you? How much time would you have saved?
I think it would have really given managed services a boost, right? Because ultimately it's as if you've said to someone, before I come into work, can you please identify an issue, identify the root cause of the issue, identify the fix. And so when I come in, I can sit there with my cup of tea and decide, yep, I'm happy with that fix. And you're going to tell me all your reasonings as to behind that fix. And then I can say yes or no. Ultimately, managed services would love you if you could make that happen, because there is solutions that are out there that have tried to do this and no one's got quite close. So we'll be interested to see if Genie ZeroOps can get there and be able to do that sort of behind the scenes whilst people aren't shouting at you. It can find these things before anyone else detected them. So instead of managed services coming in and finding out, oh my goodness, I've got a P1 incident and the C-suite are shouting at me and it all is all broken because of yesterday's release. Ultimately, Genie ZeroOps has already told me seconds after the release, the numbers have gone down. The C-suite's going to notice, high priority, fix it now. This is the solution. That would have just been an absolute game changer if it works. That's going to be the test.
Of course it's going to work. So we mentioned other vendors out there, other companies that are doing something similar or trying to do something similar. You think they'll be watching Genie ZeroOps with a close focus and thinking, oh, well, that's how we should be doing our agents and adjusting accordingly?
Yeah, I think so. I think what Databricks is trying to do is, one, sell their whole platform, their whole suite. We can do it all. We can fix it all. Be all in Databricks, rather than sort of perhaps this previous version of like disjointed areas. But then also, if you're all in Databricks, then the agents have all of the context behind it as well, can do all the lineage, can raise things, can be right in front of the users, the engineers that are using this. So ultimately, it feels a little bit sort of that Microsoft Apple debate long ago of, if you're all in one ecosystem, then it can all talk to each other and Siri can understand everything. Maybe Databricks are trying to mimic that. If you're all in Databricks, then it can do everything and agents can do it for you.
And that has come up a couple of times, actually, is where Databricks have this ecosystem. There are a lot of companies out there worried about vendor lock-in. Even though lots of the foundations like Spark and Unity Catalog are now open source, there are obviously some intricacies that are built into the platform, which is like a Databricks only enhancement. How concerned should companies be about vendor lock-in when it comes to Databricks?
I think that that's always going to be a factor. I think when customers are choosing their tech, there's going to be the people that are, okay, yeah, if we're going to make the decision, we're going to be all in on this. That's absolutely fine. But then there's always going to be those companies that are concerned or a little bit more scared of that particular vendor lock-in, and they would rather have all these different areas doing different bits that they're sort of known for. Like you've got your IT systems, you've got your cloud systems, you've got all of those separate. But the issue with that disjointed effort is, how well do they talk to each other? Yes, sort of in Databricks, you've got that Delta sharing and the open lake and things like that are now coming on stream. But then Databricks is sort of bringing behind that all of these brand new agents, and Genie is coming sort of, I don't know whether they're going to open source Genie very soon and say, this is how we do agents, because they probably see that as their secret sauce. The ultimate like the Delta sharing and Spark open source, and you can do all of that. Everyone can now do that, but not everyone can do the Genie secret sauce. That will be the test.
And that is a key point. I don't want to venture too far into Genie ontology because I'm going to take away from the next podcast. Sneak preview there. But it feels like from a Databricks perspective, you have this Databricks ecosystem. You start plugging in things like Genie ontology. You have all that context about what data is in the tables. If you've got your comments and your tagging all up to date in Unity Catalog, you have this whole ecosystem where it's designed to be quite open, but also all of these tools are designed to work together. So that's clearly a great benefit, isn't it?
Yeah, I think if Databricks can start selling if you're all in Databricks, then you get all of these fantastic features. I think that's definitely going to be a big driver. I think they're seeing huge growth, and people will spend hours debating the conflicts and the wars that are going on between them. Just out of these announcements, there seems to be posts and counter posts and arguments and counter arguments between each of the sort of cloud vendors. But ultimately, it will come down to, do people want these sets of features on Databricks, or do they want these sets of features on Snowflake? And ultimately, what is important to customers? Is it speed? Is it sort of productionization quicker? What are the real factors behind choosing a vendor?
I think to me, I just want the thing to work.
That's usually a key one. But if they all work, then hold on. Where do we spend our efforts? Because I don't think one platform's going to do it all. But then if you go back to that separation and how they talk to each other, then if you think one platform's not going to do it all, then do you go multi-platform? In which case, how do they talk to each other? Is that actually worse than accepting the downsides of one platform? These are just going to be the questions that people are going to decide on greenfield and brownfield sites.
And it's similar to a conversation I was having with Peter on the previous podcast. The risk is if you have multiple platforms, you then also have multiple copies of that data. And I'm very much a fan. I'm not sure I like the term single version of the truth. I just want one copy of the data. And I want all my systems to be able to use it. So Peter was talking about things like Lakehouse RT and being able to get that millisecond latency. So I think, again, with Genie ZeroOps, by having that one copy of the data, you fix that in one place, right?
Yeah, I think that will be a real test of Genie ZeroOps. Is instead of your inside your little test little case, your little demo little case, how does it actually work on a big production Databricks case? Like your data lineage that goes around in circles, or there's loads of copies of the tables, or whatever. How is it going to perform? Is it going to suggest you fix it in 3 places or 1? Or is it going to drive that conversation to, hold on, we have too many pipelines that are all broken, and we have too many things that we're not bothered about? You always have to sort of flip it on its head. Like the stuff that will come up in the Genie ZeroOps inbox at the high severity, you need to fix, obviously. But I always sort of turn it on its head, like, what is it not flagging? Like, what is the stuff that doesn't matter? What is the stuff that is seen as low impact? Why do we have that? Let's trim. Let's do a housekeeping exercise to get rid of that stuff. That will be interesting as well to see, does it help with that on a big estate?
I'm just going to expand on that slightly. Is there anything in Genie ZeroOps when you first saw it that you thought, if only it could do this as well? Is there any feature that they've missed?
I think I will be interested from managed services sort of background. How does it work with sort of ticketing systems, ITSM systems? How is it going to interact with those? Is it going to create the tickets? Is it going to update them? Is it going to do all of managed services workload? Or is it just going to help you with the starting gun, those first 5-6 hours of an investigation into an incident? Is it going to help you there and suggest the fix? And it's not going to help you with the communication and that kind of stuff. I think that it's never going to be able to do potentially the business context, but it might be able to do, hold on, let's look at where this came from. Was it a release? Was it source? Was it table complex? What causes a lot of these incidents? And how can it be prevented? Ultimately, okay, root cause analysis is great, but what's the prevention? What's the problem analysis? What's the common themes that you're seeing? Is it that these releases happen too often and too quickly? And hold on, we need better approval gates. Is it going to help in that regard? I don't know, but I would love it to.
Yeah, come up with some suggestions on how you can improve your operations. That's almost dangerous, isn't it? But you're right, though. I mean, context is everything. Context is obviously the big theme of the Databricks Summit this year, as well as choice and control. Obviously, the context bit is quite relevant. So it can only look as far as the data it's got within the Databricks ecosystem. So it'd be interesting to see how people start to use it when they need to understand what happens outside of the Databricks system, i.e., somebody's done a dodgy release on a admin system somewhere, or someone's put wrong data, or somehow, heaven forbid, someone's managed to delete production data in a production application. So it will identify the problem, but it will go, well, this data is now missing, or we're not getting the data we expect. And it's being able to raise those tickets into the ITSM and maybe then assign it. It won't know who to assign that to, because that will need to be assigned to somebody in a system upstream. And unless it also has all that context of who is in that team of the upstream system, it's just gonna go, yeah, over to you.
Yeah, I think that will be interesting to see when we get our hands on it, is how does it work with upstream systems? And like, coming from managed services, often I'll be jumping between systems. So a report's got a dodgy number in. Okay, let's jump into the report. Okay, that's backed by analysis services. And then you go back, okay, this is coming from curated tables, this has come from silver tables, this has come from bronze. Go back to the source, go back to the database. Okay, the database is over here. This is what's loading the database. This is the front end. So all that sort of stream, I'm jumping in and out of different systems. If it could have helped me in bronze to curated, fantastic. And potentially dashboards if they're built in Databricks. But if it can help me there, great. It's not going to know that sort of source context, who owns it, where do I need to put this, all of that kind of stuff. That wider context is definitely something that it won't know. And I think if it can know, fantastic.
Maybe that's the evolution then. Hey, Databricks, we need a way for it to know things outside of Databricks.
Yes.
There's an interesting challenge. I'm just looking forward to the day when an IT incident manager comes along and starts reviewing a bunch of incidents and goes, who's Genie?
Yeah, that was definitely an interesting demo that I found in one of the presentations, was that they had this sort of Slack or Teams notification demo, like obviously agnostic and not promoting one over the other, but said, oh, Genie ZeroOps has dropped into your chat and has helped you, and you can just press this nice green button and approve it. It's like, hold on, that green button, what does that actually do? Does it approve the pull request and it just sails through and it's all good and I just have to believe the agent is all good? Or maybe I want to press the other button that's review the pull request and see what's going on. They obviously didn't have that necessarily working. They just said, this is what they expect it to look like. Because ultimately, instead of you coming in the morning and you've got a chat full of the C-suite all complaining at you, you've just got Genie saying to the engineers, by the way, you might want to fix the release that you did yesterday. But ultimately, that will be interesting to see how that integrates as well. Because if it's going to integrate with the ITSM systems, then it needs to start integrating with the engineers and start effectively starting to be a junior engineer in the team that works through the night, doesn't take breaks, doesn't require that higher salary for working overtime and into the weekend, and already has the fix ready for you, ready to go. That would just be a great, helpful little junior engineer to join. Maybe not a junior engineer if it can do all of that.
And then it will disappear into the Slack channel of many messages all at once, and you have no idea what the most important is. Surely.
Yeah, that because of the inbox shows you the severity. Whether the Slack channel will be able to do that as well will be interesting. Of, oh, hold on, Genie's fired 100 messages at me as soon as I've pressed deploy. Maybe that wasn't the best deployment. Yeah, that would be great fun to start giving the fire to the person who's caused the fire, instead of being the fireman coming in to fix the fire. To go back to your firefighting analogy.
Maybe there's an evolution of the system as well. Rather than just sending a Slack chat message or a Teams message, instead, it can actually start a Slack huddle or a Teams call to say, hey, did you know there's this major problem we need to fix? And then you actually have a natural language conversation with your Genie ZeroOps to say, Yeah, okay. Can you take a look at that for me and then send me the pull request? Which we'll already have done, of course. But no, I digress. I mean, we're going off on random tangents with this now. So, I mean, there's loads to unpack with ZeroOps. Until we actually get our hands on it, it's going to be really difficult to see exactly how well it does some of these things. And the irony is we're just going to have to chuck lots of things. We're going to have to break lots of things in a stable test environment in order to see how well it reacts to that, and then really get our hands dirty with how these things sort of work.
Yeah, definitely. I think I've already put myself forward for product preview this month. I would like to get my hands on it immediately, please, and start testing it and start helping develop it. But we'll definitely just have to see how well it goes. Some of the demos sources have suggested that it's in flight and starting to be, you can use it, but how good it is really going to depend on your environment. Like we go back to the saying, context is everything, right? Like ultimately it works inside Databricks enough for them to present it at Summit and to start selling people on this dream of, hold on, you don't need to spend half your day fixing things. You can now start spending your day talking to agents to build stuff instead of talking to agents to fix things. But ultimately, how does that work in your finance data platform? How does that work in your HR data platform? How does it interact, and how is it sort of domain agnostic, or is it going to struggle in certain areas where it's, hold on, not quite refined enough? That will be like all of these things. The proof is very much in the practice.
The one thing we haven't mentioned in all the chat so far is the cost of this thing. Again, we don't know how much it's going to be, but it will use tokens. It will use a certain amount of compute to run some of these diagnostics. So that is one of those things I think a lot of people will be interested in as well.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a real sort of wake-up call if it's more expensive than they're expecting it to be. But there's nothing yet as to the cost, or whether it's going to consume your Genie allowance, and whether it's assigned to a person, or whether it's sort of at an account level or workspace level. We don't know any of these things yet. What we just want to see is get our hands on it, and until someone shouts that there's a massive bill somewhere, then crack on. But ultimately, there probably will be a bill associated with all of this, because to have a 24/7 brilliant engineer fixing things on the fly immediately in a stable work environment for £0, I think anyone would bite your hand off for that. And I just don't think that's going to be likely.
And I'm going to leave you with just one thought then, George. Have you ever come across a manager who said, I want solutions, not problems?
Yeah, I've heard that. As like, I've also heard, I can't remember what the acronym is, but just go away and fix it, George, was very much the saying that I've heard over and over again. It's like, you're pointing me to problems, not, you haven't just fixed it and come back and said yes. So maybe I should have taken sort of a leaf out of Genie's book and said, here's the fix. Are you happy with the fix? And if they want to talk to me, then they can. So I've got a solution, not a problem.
I was thinking more along the lines of, hey, Genie ZeroOps is here to give you those solutions and not the problem. But anyway, thank you very much, George. Great talking to you. Hopefully we'll see you on the Data Hot Seat again soon. In the meantime, we'll see you later.
Thanks so much.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of the Data Hot Seat. Thank you so much to George for walking us through Genie ZeroOps. And if there's one thing I'm taking away from today, it's that this announcement could end up being one of the most impactful. Less firefighting and more building. That's the promise here. And if it delivers, it's going to free up a huge amount of time for data teams everywhere. If today's episode resonated with you, if you felt that pain of spending more time fixing than building, share this one with your team. It might just be the conversation starter you need. As always, if you want to dig deeper into anything we've covered on the series, you know where to find us. From all of us here at Advancing Analytics, we'll see you next time. The Data Hot Seat.